Chapter 467. Doflamingo breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this. He was really afraid that Dustless would beat around the bush, and he was prepared for this. It was impossible for him to offend Dustless just because they were of the same race. No one would take risks if there were no benefits. This is my bargaining chip. With a confident smile, Doflamingo reluctantly took out the design that he had kept for many years. The worn paper had some holes and wax yellow. It was obviously an antique from many years ago. Some of the precise data and words on it attracted Dustless's attention. Pluto, the king of hell. How can this guy have Pluto's design? Shouldn't it be the legendary King Ulanos? Dustless's eyes widened, and his face was full of strangeness. Dustless, who has read a lot of history of Mariehua, knows that in the ancient times, Water 7 built the most evil super battleship in history, Pluto. As for the specific reason for building Pluto, there is no detailed record. Dustless guessed that it should be used in some kind of war. It is not difficult to see from the design that the construction of Pluto is a time-consuming and labor-consuming project. It takes several years. Such a huge project is obviously impossible to be used for viewing and showing off. Dustless is not interested in what urgent things happened in the ancient times. The only thing that puzzles him is why Pluto's design appeared in Doflamingo's hands. I got this from the old man Tom in Water 7. Doflamingo replied in an extremely unnatural manner as he dodged Dustless's questioning gaze. Clearly, he was deliberately concealing the truth. It seems that there is more than one design of Pluto. At least he can be sure that there is more than one design of Pluto. No one knows if there are other designs of Pluto around the world. This is the power to destroy the world. Doflamingo's eyes were full of fanaticism. Pluton is a super weapon with the name of God. It is said that just a casual shot can make an island disappear from the sea and raise it. Its power is unprecedented, and even Mariehua and Marine Headquarters can easily flatten it. Doflamingo's voice was filled with endless charm, bewitching Dustless's rationality. After a while, Dustless only sneered in response. The power to destroy the world? That was indeed the case, but right now, it was just a theoretical blueprint. Whether or not it could be built was still a big question mark. A straightforward person does not resort to insinuations. Just a Pluto's design is enough to make it difficult for me to protect you. Shaking his head, Doflamingo's design did not move his heart. He couldn't even raise his thoughts. You want to play this game? With a wave of his hand, Doflamingo shattered the exquisite stone table in front of him. He was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. He didn't expect Dustless to have such a black-on-black attribute. His old face was twitching, and he glared at Dustless. The cold murderous intent appeared on his face. The Pluto's design was put away by him, and now he's trying to get something for nothing. Presumptuous, how dare you, don't forget your identity, and where is this place? Hancock stared at Doflamingo, and a majestic collapsing energy fluctuation erupted from her tender body. The hot air wave was no different from an erupting volcano, and it was unusually hot. The tyrannical power just gathered on Doflamingo, indicating that he should not act rashly, otherwise, he would have to bear the consequences. This woman is actually using Haoshiku hockey? Doflamingo's eyes were filled with astonishment, and his face was full of disbelief. This dress is obviously a maid, but she has the quality of a king. How can he not be surprised, especially this Haoshiku? Although it is not as good as him, it has obviously reached a level where it can be used flexibly. A mere servant has such ability, and it also indirectly shows how unfathomable the strength of the master who controls her is. Could it be that he is? An unprecedentedly absurd thought suddenly appeared in his mind, and an unprecedentedly terrifying thought was born along with it. The corners of his mouth trembled, and he was just about to open his mouth to ask when Wu Chen's eternal indifferent voice spread out. Doflamingo! Waving his hand, he signaled Hancock to converge her aura. Wu Chen's eyes were as calm as water. He quietly looked at Doflamingo and said bluntly, "In fact, from the moment you decided to find me, it was like a sheep entering the tiger's mouth. Despicable!" With a muffled groan, Doflamingo sat back down on the sofa. Out of sight, out of mind. Despicable? It's ridiculous. Compared to you pirates who commit all kinds of crimes, I feel like I'm the incarnation of God, a kind savior of the world. More than 95% of the pirates were evil existences that raped and looted. There were only a handful of people like Luffy who were truly adventurous and wanted to fulfill their dreams. Using Pluton's blueprint in exchange for my protection, this is just your wishful thinking. In this world where the strong are respected, I can use my fist to take Pluton's blueprint by force. Wu Chen said in an extremely gentle tone. Although it was rude, it was an undeniable fact. Everyone in the world had such a way of doing things. It was like a unique order. As long as one's fist was big enough, one could snatch it by force. In fact, it's not impossible to agree to your conditions, of course. Before that, there must be a condition. Seeing Doflamingo's face full of despair, Dustless smiled, and the former's heart was filled with hope. Just say it. Doflamingo asked in a hoarse voice, trying to hide his calmness. The request is very simple. I will not only help you solve the crisis brought by Kaido, but also help you avoid the invasion of the Marine, and even let your Don Quixote family become the king of Dressrosa again. From now on, you and your crew must stay in Dressrosa to secretly build Pluton. As for the manpower problem, I will naturally help you solve it. Chapter 468. The reason why he supported Doflamingo to become the king of Dressrosa is also a whim. It is not a problem to count on the world government to build Pluton, but the final buyer must be the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. As for Dustless, he can go wherever it is cool. There is no place for him. Doflamingo's expression solidified when he heard this, and his eyebrows were deeply squeezed together. Then he lowered his head in thought, and his eyes flashed with burning brilliance. In this way, the advantages are self-evident. He can avoid Kaido and Marine's invasion, which means that he can unilaterally face the pressure from pirates in the future. But asking him to willingly be Dustless's lackey was really forcing him to do something. The king of Dressrosa. His rough iron fist clenched, and Doflamingo's eyes were intoxicated and yearning. It seems that he has already seen the scene of him becoming a king in the future and overlooking the world. Doflamingo is a different kind of pirate. He is obsessed with the Pirate King, and he is very happy with the legendary One Piece. At the same time, because of the psychological shadow of childhood, the idea of power is deeply ingrained in his bones, and he is also the object of his enthusiasm. 800 years ago, the Don Quixote family was the original royal family of Dressrosa. If he can sit on the throne again, it can be regarded as repaying his ancestors. Maybe the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, will not give him face, and it is not impossible to be humiliated. Thinking of the strength and indifference of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, his impassioned heart was poured with cold water, and his fanatical look converged, and Doflamingo muttered with uncertainty in his heart. Doflamingo has never heard of anyone who can talk face-to-face with the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Not only because the 5 of them are the highest power in the world, but also because of their earth-shaking strength, and even when the 5 of them work together, their strength is far more than 10 times that of an individual. This guy is tempted. I thought he would refuse me. Shaking his head slightly, Dustless said dully. He thought that this kid would not accept his conditions and resist hard, but he didn't expect that he would abandon his ideas and dreams so easily, which is indeed different from Dustless's expectations. On second thought, Dustless also felt relieved. Doflamingo didn't have such an unprecedented dream now. The current him was just a rat crossing the street. Everyone wanted to beat him up. His identity was so simple. Whether it is the Marine headquarters, the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, or 100 Beast Kaido, they all regard Doflamingo as a thorn in their eyes, and can't wait to get rid of him. Now he is in a dangerous situation. Those 5 old fellows will give me some face. Dustless explained with a chuckle after seeing through Doflamingo's hidden concern at a glance. The Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. The Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, is 5 Elder Stars is Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, is Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, actually not Dare 2's. Gorosei's Kaido not S Gorosei, Kaido. In the future, he will recruit Doflamingo in the way of Shichibukai, to explain everything silently. If I can be the king of Dressrosa again, and get rid of the Marine and 100 Beast Kaido. The hesitation in his eyes was replaced by determination, and Doflamingo gritted his teeth and said with hatred, I can help you build Pluton and turn this world upside down. In the end, Doflamingo almost roared out. It seems that only in this way can he vent the infinite anger and gloom in his heart. People under the eaves have to bow their heads. If he does not comply with Dustless's conditions, he may not even be able to step out of Mariehua, and the only ending is death. His body is like a willow fluttering in the wind, only a few words, but it is the true portrayal of Doflamingo today. It's not a day's work to make Pluton. I once asked someone to estimate that even with the participation of powerful scientists, it will take more than 10 or even 20 years to complete. This is the case when all the facilities are complete. Otherwise, it can only be extended indefinitely. Doflamingo said truthfully, Pluton's exaggeration is beyond imagination. Its basic outline is larger than some islands, and it also needs a huge dock and various facilities. The most important thing is that without the participation of powerful scientists, the foundation of more than 10 or 20 years will be regressed indefinitely. Those precise data are not something that pirates like them can understand. That's true. We must have a strong scientific research team. Dustless nodded in agreement. Doflamingo doesn't understand. And he doesn't understand. Vegapunk? Doflamingo tentatively suggested as he thought of the world's most powerful mind. Doflamingo also recognized his position. At least he has no plans to leave Dustless. There is Dustless in front of him, the world government behind him, and the marine headquarters in the middle. What kind of situation is self-evident? There is no need. Others will do. Vegapunk's goal is too big. Dustless waved his hand, indicating that there is no need to do so. Vegapunk is too conspicuous. Technology is production. This sentence is vividly reflected in him, and the role he plays is even more than that of a marine admiral. Caesar Kalong is on the same level as Vegapunk. Caesar Kalong, known as the number 2, is actually the same genius. His scientific talent is not worse than Vegapunk, and this kid also has a record of doing evil experiments. He designed Pluton, an unprecedented super battleship. After learning about it, he will probably send himself to the door. Him. Hearing this, Doflamingo had a strange look on his face. It was not that he had never heard of the mad scientist Caesar Kalong. If it were not for the fact that the current situation was too dangerous, he would have captured Caesar to conduct another experiment. Although his brain is sick and unreliable, he is indeed a top scientist who can compete with Vegapunk. Doflamingo replied truthfully, and he couldn't help admiring Dustless's ability to listen to everything. For him, who was born at the top of the world, Caesar Kalong is just a tiny grain of sand. Chapter 469. Everyone's life has a period of ups and downs, and now it was exactly the unfavorable period for Caesar. As a top scientist of the government, he was suppressed by Vegapunk, a super existence. Caesar and Vegapunk had accumulated resentment for a long time, and they were like fire and water. Because of Caesar's extreme personality, Vegapunk was hostile and disgusted with him. People who walk different paths cannot work together. This also led to differences of opinion between the two. Vegapunk's status was higher than Caesar's, and the one who would fail in the end would definitely be him. I heard that he was locked up in prison a while ago. With a bright face, Dustless looked at his thumb rhythmically and said calmly, although a prison break is rare, it is not unique. Every year, fugitives escape from prison. Other people can escape from prison, and so can Caesar. These words undoubtedly meant that Dustless wanted to help Caesar escape from prison. Although with Dustless's current identity, he could even bail Caesar out, the impact of it would be unparalleled. A person with a long lifespan colluding with the world's craziest scientist, not only would the world have wild and fanciful thoughts, but the 5 Elder Stars would also get to the bottom of it. At that time, it would inevitably cause trouble, and it would also attract countless spies and trouble. The development and construction of Pluto, this kind of crazy plan would be destroyed if it was exposed to the public. Even if the 5 Elder Stars were as magnanimous as the sky, they still couldn't tolerate it. The place where Caesar is imprisoned is the deep-sea prison. It has been built for decades, and the only one who escaped was the fallen golden lion Shiki. Doflamingo laughed sarcastically when he heard the words. His tone was very casual and exaggerated. Obviously, he didn't mean what he said. As long as he had Dustless's cooperation, it would not be difficult to help Caesar escape from prison. The original prison warden was called Shilyu of the Rain. He was powerful and had amazing swordsmanship, but he was a bloodthirsty person. In the end, he was forcibly imprisoned. The current warden was called Magellan, and he was also very strong. Many years ago, Doflamingo had been eyeing Caesar, this fat sheep. When he was locked up in the deep-sea prison, Doflamingo's plan to rescue Caesar was also put on the stage, and there was already a detailed process. In fact, It's not difficult to get Caesar out of hell, as long as you cooperate. Cooperate? Raising his eyelids, Dustless looked at Doflamingo indifferently and said without care, "The word cooperate is meaningless. Just invade directly." Without hesitation, Dustless vetoed Doflamingo's proposal and said in a carefree manner, "This is indeed the case." Doflamingo was startled at first, but soon agreed. If Dustless were to join the team, the so-called cooperation would indeed be unnecessary. There would be no need to go through the trouble of formulating a detailed evolution. All they needed to do was to charge around recklessly. "You've misunderstood my meaning. I am not the one who did it." Shaking his head, Dustless did not plan to do it himself. This kind of hard work could be left to his subordinates. There was no need for him to do it himself. Hearing this, Doflamingo's face twitched. He suddenly felt that it was extremely difficult to converse with Dustless. This trustworthy boss always liked to keep people in suspense. With the power of the Don Quixote pirates alone, attacking the deep-sea prison is no different from looking for death, and if they can't clean up the mess quickly, the highest combat power of the Marine headquarters should come in person. "Don't worry, someone will cooperate with you." Seeing Doflamingo's eyes flickering, Dustless smiled mysteriously. At the same time, a bare-chested man with only a simple black skin slowly walked out of the dark space. His amber eyes were extremely sharp, no different from an eagle's. The sharp black knife on his back flickered with a cold light. His eyes emitted a faintly discernible sharp sword aura, making Doflamingo's hair stand on end. He was on guard against the mysterious newcomer. He felt an unprecedented threat and oppression from this man who suddenly appeared. Looking closely, it was the great pirate Hawkeye Hawk. "Why are you in Mariehua? Aren't you a prisoner pursued by the government?" Hawkeye. Seeing the appearance of Hawkeye, Doflamingo looked gloomy and the killing intent in his tone was undisguised. "You are not wanted by the government. Why are you here?" Hawkeye asked Doflamingo softly as he leaned against the wall. Seeing this, Dustless cast an interested look. It was not difficult to hear from the tone of the two of them that there should have been some kind of unknown grievance at some point in the past. After a little silence, Dustless was too lazy to ask more. There are inextricable relationships between the great pirates. Whether it's grievances or old hatred, now we are teammates in the same trench. I hate traitors the most, and I hate despicable villains who stab people in the back. The grievances of the past are gone today. If this was known by Dustless's teammates in the last world, they would vomit blood and die because the person who is the best at cheating his teammates is himself. After saying that, Wu Chen's domineering aura gushed out. The spacious room shifted and he came to another spacetime. In an instant, the gravity was dozens of times higher. It was as difficult as climbing a mountain to move. Ka. The delicate floor shattered into granules, causing Hancock, a maid, to have a big headache. She doesn't know how many times the Lois family has changed the floor. Under the influence of this monstrous aura, any thoughts of disobedience would be easily obliterated on the spot. Doflamingo felt his scalp tingle. Under the shadow of death that he had never experienced before, he could not muster up any thoughts of resistance. Doflamingo is not afraid of life and death, but if he dies so miserably, it will be another matter. "How Hockey?" Hawkeye's sharp eyes flashed with surprise, and he lowered his head and was silent. His eyes quietly spread and took Hawkeye and Hancock into his eyes. Doflamingo's cold and dead heart was strangely hot, and even his face was flushed with morbid excitement. This team that I joined at the last minute can really fulfill my dream and turn this world upside down. Chapter 470. Suddenly feeling that his dream of the future may become a reality, Doflamingo was also enraptured for a while. Even Dustless and the silent Hawkeye were forgotten by him. The whole world became his stage. In the world in front of him, there are very few people who can really see through fame and fortune. Not everyone is like Dustless, who can be as calm as water, pure of heart and few desires, to the extent that fame is nothing. All pirates want to be famous in the world and their names spread all over the world. Doflamingo is like this, and Hawkeye is no exception. If one day the world wants to take away his title of the world's greatest swordsman, he will bet all his dignity to defend his glory. It's still daytime, it's too early to go to bed, it's not time to dream. Raising his eyelids, Hawkeye ridiculed Doflamingo, who was immersed in his fantasy. His tone was as light as autumn water. Looking at the expressionless Dustless, Hawkeye was seriously observing the old drawings. Hawkeye was extremely puzzled. Doflamingo's ambition could swallow the heavens and swallow the earth. He didn't think that such a dangerous person was worth cooperating with. So that's how it is. Is it for that? Hawkeye, who has excellent eyesight, saw the outline of the drawings in Dustless's hands at a glance. Although he doesn't understand the precise data, he knows the eye-catching big words Pluto. Ancient weapon design drawings. Dream? That's nonsense, Hawkeye. Doflamingo laughed wildly, his gloomy laughter spread, full of longing for the future. Fantasizing about the future in advance, how can it be a dream? A person without dreams, what's the difference between him and a salted fish? Too shallow, Hawkeye. After saying that, Doflamingo laughed even more savagely. His laughter was unbridled and unbridled. Everyone was just a spectator. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in your boring dreams. Hawkeye glanced at Doflamingo as lightly as a feather and said in a dull tone. There was no common ground between those who walked different paths. He and Doflamingo were never on the same path. It was only because of the existence of Dustless that he walked into the same trench as Doflamingo. That was all. Pedantic. Seeing that Hawkeye didn't understand the situation, Doflamingo also closed his mouth. He just joined this group, and both Hancock and Hawkeye faintly rejected him. The atmosphere became strangely silent. 3 pairs of eyes looked at Dustless in silence. Although Doflamingo was talkative, he and Hawkeye were not like-minded and could not speak together. As for the maid Hancock, it was even more impossible. Hawkeye and Doflamingo, go and find Caesar. Remember to do it cleanly. Kill everyone who has seen your faces. After a moment of silence, Dustless said coldly. The implication is nothing more than that. Whether it is a marine or a pirate who sees their true faces, they will all be killed. Hearing this, Doflamingo and Hawkeye both nodded. The two of them were not indecisive people. Anyone who saw their faces would naturally die. After rescuing Caesar, where will he be placed? He is a famous mad scientist. Doflamingo asked expectantly, with a different meaning. He hoped that Doflamingo could sit on the throne of Dressrosa and arrange for Caesar to stay in Dressrosa. At that time, he would be able to fulfill his dream, and his crew, who were like family members, would be able to recuperate. Their days of being a fugitive at sea would also be over. It's too early. Like a heavy blow, Dustless did not hesitate to refuse Doflamingo. Doflamingo's mouth squirmed, and he intended to refute, but Dustless's face was cold, and the words that had been brewing in his throat for a long time were choked into his stomach. Thinking about it, Doflamingo felt relieved. It was impossible to directly ask Dressrosa's Liku royal family to leave, and the latter would obediently give up the throne and leave. The Liku royal family was loved and respected by the local people, and their support was very strong. The materials needed to build Pluton are huge. It's not too late to take Dressrosa after collecting all the materials. According to the degree of exaggeration of the design, the area of Pluton is as large as the island, and the various kinds of equipment needed can be imagined. The most important factor is that Dustless wants to wait until Doflamingo becomes a Shichibukai before occupying Dressrosa. In this way, he doesn't need to personally open the umbrella for Doflamingo. When attacking the impel down of the deep-sea prison, I have something for you. Dustless said with a hoarse smile. Suddenly there was a flash of inspiration in his mind. Dustless wrote a bunch of unflattering words and motioned to Hancock to wrap it with an envelope. Although puzzled, Hancock nodded seriously and walked towards the dark corridor. Hawkeye and Doflamingo were startled by this scene. They looked at Dustless with a dark smile on his face. They didn't need to think to know that this wasn't a good thing. Time is up. You go to rescue Caesar. Remember not to be recognized by others. Anyone who sees your true appearance will be killed without mercy. Waving his hand, Dustless suddenly ordered them to leave. Hawkeye and Doflamingo didn't talk nonsense. After looking at each other with tacit understanding, they also left the corridor where Hancock left. In the brightly lit room, there was only Dustless sitting alone. After the sound of shoes twisting disappeared completely, Dustless opened his eyes, no longer clear, full of puzzlement and confusion. Looking carefully at the design of Pluton in his hand, and after confirming it from head to toe, Dustless looked more gloomy, and there was a hint of killing intent. This is undoubtedly the design of Pluton, but the design in front of him was very different from what he expected, and even contrary to his original conjecture, and the content of the design subverted Dustless's cognition. But the most important factor was missing. Chapter 471. Carefully reading Pluton's blueprint, Dustless keenly realized that something was wrong. All kinds of data were not lacking, but one thing he cared about most was missing. The so-called surgeon fruit is not needed to start Pluton, which also indirectly shows that Pluton has nothing to do with the so-called Mariehua National Treasure. It's really disappointing. After a moment of silence, Dustless sighed. He had been busy for a long time. Except for the ancient weapon blueprint, everything else was still the same. What is Doflamingo deliberately hiding? White Zetsu, who poked his head out, asked with a little disgust in his tone. Doflamingo gives people the feeling that he is an extremely evil existence. Others still pay attention to bottom lines and principles, but he has no bottom line in dealing with people. It's like wearing the coat of a demon. It's completely dark inside. As long as the benefits are enough, he can betray at any time. Impossible. I can see that this blueprint has not been tampered with, and he doesn't have the courage to lie to me. Shaking his head resolutely, Dustless can be 100% sure of the authenticity of the map. Since Doflamingo dared to come to the door so openly, it meant that his subordinates had investigated Dustless. At the very least, they knew Dustless's temperament. Doflamingo also knew what would happen if they tried to fool him with fake goods. To some extent, Dustless is more ferocious than the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Perhaps the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, did not dare to touch him because of Pluton's blueprint. If it was Dustless, this trick would not have any effect. Still quietly waiting for Caesar's news. Standing up, the exhaustion spread all over his body. When he was about to go to bed, a supernatural energy fluctuation suddenly spread out. Ka. There was a violent vibration throughout Mariehua. Even hundreds of meters away from the center, Dustless could feel a heavy blow that tore the ground. Several energy fluctuations that were enough to crush the sky suddenly descended. The sleepy eyes were replaced by gloominess in an instant, and Dustless's eyes emitted a soul-stirring light. These dangerous breaths were all Haushaku Haki. Dustless tidied up his messy clothes and walked quickly to the balcony. The restless Haki has Doflamingo and Hawkeye. Could it be? Staring at the void that was torn to pieces in the distance, Dustless looked calm. Hawkeye and Doflamingo were obviously at a disadvantage, and it was self-evident who in Mariehua had reached this level of strength. Looking up, the void hundreds of miles ahead had been torn apart, and in the air, there was only a dark abyss, and the narrow and long cracks almost encompassed the entire Mariehua. The gigantic dark crack was large enough to devour everything in the world. The power that made one's heart palpitate lingered around it, as if an invisible hand was constantly pulling the surface area of the abyss. What do those 5 old men mean by this? Dustless's eyes flashed with killing intent. His entire body turned into resplendent light particles, and his original body disappeared. He turned into a straight beam of light and whizzed out. In the blink of an eye. His speed was so fast that it was hard for the naked eye to catch him. Hey! What do you 5 old men mean by this? On the sunken ground, Doflamingo was on guard against the 5 figures in front of him, and there was a little regret in his eyes, and he secretly scolded himself for being too reckless. Doflamingo, I should have made an agreement with you before. You're gambling with your life. The old man with the sword said with killing intent, and looking at his line of sight, the broken limbs were clearly visible, and there was almost no human appearance. However, it is not difficult to see from the fragments of these people's clothes and the air cover that has not burst yet. They are celestial dragons. Celestial dragons was his former identity, and now he is just a pirate who commits all kinds of crimes. A pirate is always a pirate, and his nature is always difficult to change. This time, we will kill him on the spot and save the celestial dragons from trouble. The 5 old men with blonde hair said with killing intent, and the oppression overflowing from his strong body was desperate. Ka. The clothes all over his body burst apart, revealing a strong body, and the regular abdominal muscles of his abdomen were clearly visible. Obviously, he and Garp are both strong people who have reached the limit of physical strength. This is bad. Hawkeye's heart fell to the bottom. These 5 people are not what he and Doflamingo can deal with. If the 5 of them come together, they may end the battle in just a few minutes. The scene gradually heated up, and both sides were just silent momentum. When the scene was about to go out of control, a cold voice stopped the outcome that was about to get out of control. There is no doubt that it is Dustless who came. 5. Please give me an explanation. Golden photons converged from all directions, slowly condensed and compressed, and finally turned into a cold figure, staring at the 5 old men with a bad face, and the blame in his tone was undisguised. The 5 old men clearly knew that Hawkeye was their subordinate, but they still blocked him, making it clear that they wanted to slap him in the face. Explanation? You came at the right time. We also need an explanation from you, Louis South, Holy. Pointing to the dismembered body of the celestial dragon on the ground, the bald 5 old men who were most familiar with Dustless coldly asked, Doflamingo, this guy is too bold. Before entering the Holy Land, I had made 3 rules with him. This kid even dared to take an inch and take a mile. Chapter 472. Turning his head, revealing half of his face to look at Doflamingo, Dustless released his clenched fist, and the vigorous power accumulated in his body also dissipated. The broken limbs of the celestial dragons on the ground silently explained everything. All in all, they were in the wrong first. This kid is as cunning as a rabbit. Dustless couldn't help admiring in his heart. Doflamingo said that it was revenge, and it was indeed possible, but according to Dustless's guess, he wanted to test himself in disguise. He wanted to verify the relationship between the 5 Elder Stars and Dustless. Giving them a small lesson is to slaughter all of them? Son of a concubine, your so-called big lesson is really something to look forward to. Stepping forward, the 5 Elder Stars with a birthmark on his forehead asked with killing intent. He had warned Doflamingo not to act rashly before, but this kid was still so arrogant that he killed people in broad daylight. It was really hateful. The strange purple flames lingered behind him, and his whole person was shrouded in purple mist. Combined with his fierce face, even the arrogant Doflamingo instinctively moved behind Dustless. His movements were so subtle that they did not leave any traces. Everyone present had looks of disdain on their faces. The dead are gone, and the dead can't be resurrected. It's better to sit down and discuss how to deal with the aftermath. With a modest smile on the corner of his mouth, Dustless said softly with a bit of magnetism. It was also a disguised concession. Upon seeing this, the 5 honored stars looked at each other and could see the strangeness in each other's eyes. In their eyes, Wuxia had always been the kind of person who was extremely strong and arrogant. Now, this kind of gentle and refined time to talk reason was rarely seen. Doflamingo's eyes flashed with a hidden color, and he looked at the 5 Elder Stars' every move. He was silent. He didn't expect Dustless's deterrence to be so great. If it weren't for the existence of Dustless, he would have been burned into nothingness by the strange purple flames. The 5 of you, please give me some face and let this matter pass. Dustless took in a deep breath of cold air and said calmly. His tender body stood in front of Hawkeye and Doflamingo. Among them, only Dustless was the shortest, and only his body was skinny. He looked the least authoritative, but in fact, it was the opposite. The faces of the 5 Elder Stars, however, froze, which was the complete opposite of their ungrateful attitude towards Hawkeye and Doflamingo. Lois South Saint, I'm sorry, but I don't think you're that important. The 5 Elder Stars, who had long hair and beard and were extremely wise, shook their heads in denial. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. If anyone dares to trample on the law and justice, the world government will become air, and the law and order made by the 5 Elder Stars will also become a joke. They're already so old, yet they're still taking advantage of their seniority. What a bunch of cunning old men. Dustless's expression loosened as he cursed inwardly. The 5 of them in front of him were all old foxes who had been in the officialdom for many years. They were good at deceiving people. In the whole world, there were very few people who could compete with them. I can guarantee that the celestial dragons will not trouble you. The corner of his mouth raised a confident arc. After Dustless killed the celestial dragons last time, his notoriety had spread. Hearing this, the 5 Elder Stars were in a deadlock. It was undeniable that Dustless did have this ability. They looked at each other and could see the surprise in each other's eyes. They wanted to take this opportunity to kill Doflamingo, but they didn't expect Dustless to stand up for this pest. This guy. Doflamingo was expressionless when he saw this, but his heart was furious. Countless blue veins on his forehead were surging and tumbling, and a sense of shame arose spontaneously. The 5 Elder Stars didn't put him in their eyes at all, but regarded him as a fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered, or simply a bargaining chip to threaten Dustless? This still won't work. The golden-haired 5 Elder Stars shook his head, and his silent momentum broke out again. A powerful wave of destruction broke out from his body. The other 4 were not careless, and their haki, which was majestic enough to crush the void, spread out unscrupulously. This is what you asked for. Seeing this, Dustless just sneered again and again. His deep pupils turned into scarlet eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, and the dark blue substantialized evil chakra was ready to go, like a god or a demon. Decaying, the aura unique to the wild broke out of his body, covering the void, and the dark blue light covered the entire Mariehua, making people unable to put up the slightest resistance. The hazy dark blue shadow suddenly descended, and as the mysterious energy fluctuations hidden in Dustless's body continued to erupt, the shadow became more and more solid. The giant, which was 500 or 600 feet high, was looming, and as long as Dustless gave the order, the ferocious giant would become real. So high. The bald 5 Elder Stars holding the sword was shocked, and his eyes were full of shock. For the first time in many years, ripples appeared in his heart, which was calm like an ancient well, and he was shrouded by the evil wave, and his soul trembled. Even his body trembled uncontrollably. The giant's eyes made him feel powerless, and the ancient long sword at his waist was filled with an indescribable force. Before it was out of his body, the panic of all things being destroyed spread over all creatures. So I should be qualified, right? Dustless asked with a playful smile on the corner of his mouth. The 5 Elder Stars' faces all changed when they heard this, and their fists were sweating, but they did not dare to do anything. In the world where the strong are respected, the words and deeds of the people with bigger fists are the reason and order. Does Lewis South, Saint, really want to fight to the death? That won't do any good to either side. The white-haired 5 Elder Stars frowned and said in a deep voice. There was a hint of helplessness in his tone. The 5 of them had joined forces. They were confident that they could use their secret move to drag Wu Chen to hell. However, the price they had to pay was also difficult to bear. All in all, the result of fighting is to kill 1,000 of the enemy and lose 800 of their own. They will also be injured, and it will be too late to extend their lives. How can they dislike that their lives are too long? I naturally know that it's not good to do this, but I just think it's better this way. You're right. Chapter 473. If possible, Dustless didn't want to cause more trouble, but these 5 old men seemed to be used to being high and mighty. They had developed a bad habit of bossing people around. Spoiling them would only lead to enmity. Ka ka ka. The sound of bones combining sounded. The crackling sound was particularly pleasant to the ears. The giant shadow became more solid, and the majestic oppression became more intense. The 5 honored stars' hearts were gloomy and dead silent. Looking up, they saw many solid bones in the dark blue shadow. The monster with 2 heads and 4 arms could be clearly seen. It ends here. The 5 honored stars, who had a head full of white curly hair, wore a flat hat, and had a scar on the left side of his face, made the final decision. Obviously, he didn't want to shed all pretense of cordiality with Dustless over such a low-class character like Doflamingo. In the end, we're all family. His cold gaze was somewhat restrained. When it swept across Doflamingo, it flashed with a touch of disdain. The silent mockery seemed to be saying that a lackey would always be a lackey and would never amount to anything. Doflamingo's face was full of indifference. He looked at him with a sinister smile, completely fearless. It's indeed not worth making a big fuss over an ant. Casually glancing at Doflamingo, the 5 honored stars left one after another. In their hearts, they were already very certain that Dustless had stood up to protect Doflamingo at the crucial moment because Pluto's blueprint had fallen into his hands. Otherwise, with Dustless's status and strength, there was absolutely no possibility of him saving him. It's indeed not worth it for both sides to suffer. Lewis South, Saint, is still a member of our government. We can't do stupid things like killing each other, but we can be sure that Pluto's design blueprint has fallen into his hands. The 5 honored stars with long hair and beard analyzed wisely. His eyes were deep and shining. One wouldn't get up early if there were no benefits. Human nature was so greedy for benefits. This was an eternal and unchanging law. Only Pluto's design blueprint could move Dustless. In this case, we should snatch it even more. The 5 honored stars with a birthmark on their foreheads said with a hoarse voice, with longing and longing. As the highest authority in the world, They knew better than anyone else how terrifying the Netherworld King was. He was a true world-destroying divine weapon, many times more powerful than the so-called kinetic rock. Flattening an island was a piece of cake. Using this artifact to crush the rule of the celestial dragons, and then they would establish themselves as kings and establish a new order of ruler of the people. The whole world would be sublimated, and it would be the happiness of the world's people. That's for sure. However, it's still too early. Right now, it's just a tattered blueprint. The best time for us to make our move will be when it's out in the open. The 5 honored stars with the scar on their foreheads laughed sinisterly. Even if the Pluton King blueprint fell into their hands now, it would be meaningless. It would take them 10 to 20 years to build it. Dustless built it first, and in the end, they would reap the benefits. Then, they would drive Dustless's Hades and destroy him. Nothing could be more ironic. There was absolutely no need to engage in a meaningless fight to the death, especially if they were unable to obtain victory in the end. Instead, they would end up with heavy injuries or even death. The Marine doesn't seem to agree with our proposal. With a sudden turn of the conversation, the bald Gorosei brought the problem back to the Marine headquarters and sighed helplessly. Almost all of them showed their opposition. The Shichibukai plan is still too early to be introduced. The Marine and the pirates are natural enemies. There is no possibility of cooperation between the two. The fierce rebound of the Marine is also within their expectations. So what? They are useless. The blonde Gorosei sneered. It was the government who drew up the plan. In the final analysis, it was because the Marine was too useless. They could drive side by side with the pirates, and there was no need to make such a ridiculous plan as Shichibukai. After all, this is tantamount to slapping their own face. The world government is dressed in the cloak of justice, but it also gives pirates the power to loot legally. The sense of support is bound to decline. They don't want to use such a plan that hurts others and hurts themselves. It's no different from digging their own grave. The reason why the plan of Shichibukai was drawn from Dustless and Hawkeye. It was the most effective and direct way to suppress pirates with the power of pirates. It's really difficult to get them to join forces. The Gorosei nodded thoughtfully. The pirates were easy to say, but the Marine was full of complaints. Their former teammates fell under the pirates' bayonet. It's human nature to not accept it. That's not up to the warring states. The plan of Shichibukai is imperative. On the Blue Sea, the Don Quixote pirates moved slowly. Their speed was quite slow, and they looked leisurely, not at all anxious to escape. Young master, that guy. Inside the cabin, Treble looked worriedly at Doflamingo, who had a relaxed and calm expression on his face. After glancing at Hawkeye outside the cabin, he thought about the route they were sailing on. His head felt like it was made of glue, and the sky turned dark. Hawkeye used to have an old hatred with them, and now he has become a close partner. Even if his nerves are jumping, he can't keep up with the incredible scene in front of him. Deep sea prison. Impel down. It's no different from dying directly. There's no need to worry with that man. Impel down is a fat lamb outside the sheep pen. Squinting his eyes, Doflamingo's eyes emitted a dangerous light. The light of the tiger and the wolf is enough to devour everything. Now temporarily submitting to Dustless is just a prelude to a great future. Caesar is an indispensable fatal link. Even if it's not for the temporary boss Dustless, he must take the ultimate chess piece of Caesar Kalong for himself in the future. Opening the window, looking at the heavily guarded island in the distance, Doflamingo's wild and unruly laughter rang out. Let's flatten Impel down. Chapter 474. Deep Sea Prison. Impel down. There are countless big pirates imprisoned here. Some disappeared and became legendary big pirates. They are all imprisoned here and live a dark life. To some extent, Impel Down is a hell on earth isolated from the world. People who enter here want to come out alive. Except for Golden Lion Shiki, it is impossible for others. The current chief guard, Magellan, was a Paramecia's poisonous fruit ability user. Because he was a poisonous man, the breath he exhaled was poisonous, and the food that reached his mouth would also be poisoned, unintentionally. Therefore, every time the poison was too strong, his body would not be able to withstand it, causing diarrhea, but he would not die. This also causes him to spend most of the day in the toilet. The fruit ability is strong, but the side effects are also ridiculous. In the dark environment, Magellan, who had just washed his hands, laughed bitterly at himself. Other devil fruits have side effects, but his poisonous fruit is an exception. The exhalation is poisonous, and the food in his mouth is poisonous. He has diarrhea for at least 10 hours every day. Gulp. The stomach that had been empty for a long time immediately revolted, and the hunger rose uncontrollably. He quickened his pace and was about to go back to eat and drink. The sudden loud noise made his mind stop thinking. Boom, boom, boom. The walls of the deep-sea prison, which were made of special materials and extremely hard, collapsed and turned into rubble and debris. The dark green light easily penetrated a huge hole in the wall. It should have been a dark prison, but a warm ray of dawn shone in. Magellan, who has been active in the dark for many years, was unusually uncomfortable. He turned his head, and the dazzling sun made him instinctively stretch out his rough old hands in front of his eyes. Through the small gap between the 5 fingers, several figures could be vaguely seen. Who is it? These mysterious people who suddenly appeared made Magellan nervous, and the heavy coat covered the body, and it was impossible to identify their specific appearance. Even so, the vigorous breath and the previous slash made Magellan feel a fatal threat. It can be concluded that the group of people who came from the sky in front of him are all masters. Who is it? TSK. Has the constant diarrhea drained your brain? Invading Impel Down is of course to rob the prisoners. Without waiting for Magellan to react, several transparent lines that could not be captured by the naked eye whizzed out like cannonballs. The purpose was exactly the same as the bullets. The target was Magellan. Ordinary people couldn't catch these thin lines, but Magellan, one of the 2 strongest men in the deep-sea prison, could sense them clearly. Ability user. What sharp lines. Seeing this, Magellan did not dare to be careless. The other party had the advantage in numbers. For the sake of caution, he still chose to jump and avoid the attack of these thin lines. Bang, bang, bang. A series of explosions followed. The sturdy walls that made up the deep-sea prison were extremely fragile. They burst open, and fist-sized holes appeared. Dust scattered in all directions, and the ground was also covered with dust. There is no doubt that the group of people who invaded Impel Down was Hawkeye and the Don Quixote pirates. Go and search every house. Find that man Caesar, even if you have to dig 10 feet into the ground. Doflamingo, who was wearing a heavy coat, ordered. He had a deep obsession with Caesar. The members of the Don Quixote pirates nodded and then walked towards the promenade deep in the prison. Want to rescue the prisoners? It's best that you die here in peace. Seeing that the big man in the cotton-padded coat ignored his existence, Magellan's killing intent was awe-inspiring. Purple liquid flowed out of his back, and there was a strange boiling gas. The venom was compressed and formed into 3 terrible venom dragons. In the blink of an eye, the venom dragons swayed their bodies unscrupulously, and anything that touched them would be eroded and decayed. So that's how it is. I didn't expect Impel Down to hide such an extraordinary character. The Marines are really talented. A slightly surprised sigh sounded, and then the green light suddenly shone brightly. A tyrannical slash came out, and the ground was pulled into a bottomless crack as if it was cutting vegetables. This chap. Bastard, what is your purpose in invading Impel Down? Perceiving the strength of the emerald light, Magellan's face changed, and an angry roar accompanied by a strange red light spread, and a substantial giant composed entirely of red toxins was suddenly formed. Poisonous giant soldier. Hell's judgment. The mysterious enemies in front of him are strong beyond imagination. At present, Impel Down is temporarily closed, and there is no one who can surpass them. Including the prison director who has been in office for a short time, in the face of this overbearing and unparalleled chop, he smelled a strong smell of death. It seems that you have guessed our identity. In that case, I can only let you close your eyes forever. Unlike Impel Down, Dustless, who was far away in Mariehua, was idle, lazily leaning on the sofa, leisurely tasting afternoon tea. The Marines won't bother you for at least the next few years, but they still have to hide. Although I'm sorry for you, according to the current situation, they can only develop like this. After a long silence, Dustless said. Looking around, there was no one in the spacious and bright room. I understand this. I have adapted to this life of desperation. In the dark corner, a young but strong voice came out. The tone did not match the age, but with an indescribable vicissitudes of life. Chapter 475. The dark space covered the girl's face like an invisible coat. Under the observation of Dustless's abnormal visual ability, the peerless face was still reflected in the dark eyes. Maybe you were born with this fate. After a moment of silence, a complicated look flashed in his eyes. Dustless sighed with mixed feelings. The bumpy experience of the little girl in front of him was so similar to his past. His body moved and quietly fell beside the lovely girl. After carefully observing her for a long time, Dustless's casual thoughts turned into substantial action. Dustless's closed eyes opened, no longer the previous dark eyes, turned into scarlet five-pointed star eyes. With a slightly pale and indifferent face, there was no difference between him and the Grim Reaper who stepped out of hell. There was even a faint blood mist drifting behind him, which was breathtaking. The little girl's deep eyes instinctively flashed with panic, and she subconsciously stepped back until she was squeezed into the corner and couldn't retreat anymore. Then her panicked steps stopped. Don't be afraid, I'm not as terrible as you think. There is a gap between celestial dragons and Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Seeing this, Dustless with a gloomy face showed a kind smile. His gentle face warmed people's hearts. It seemed neither fish nor fowl, but it came from his heart. In fact, Dustless is not as terrible and indifferent as imagined. The premise of all this is not to touch his bottom line. Of course, touching his bottom line is another matter. Those who dare to challenge his bottom line, Dustless will naturally tear them into pieces. The little girl slightly nodded, her isolated heart was loosened, and she walked in front of Dustless. This is called Mangekyo Sharingan. It's one of my countless abilities. It can be regarded as my specialty. Raising his hand and pointing to his eye socket, Dustless softly introduced. Then squatting down, the two of them maintained the same height. After staring at her for a moment, he said, "After completing the task for me, you can get your own reward and freedom. Like a normal human, you can easily bathe in the sun under the bright sky. You don't have to live a dark life." He looked directly at the little girl, and a magnetic voice appeared in his cold voice as he spoke in an extremely serious manner. Of course, there are always unexpected things in the world. The future is always changing, and accidents happen from time to time. In order for you to live well, I've decided to lend you my power temporarily. Ripples appeared in the scarlet eyes, and the dark surroundings became even colder. The evil suppression of the kaleidoscope became even stronger. Do you mean your weird-shaped eyes? The little girl was obviously very intelligent. She blinked her eyes and asked curiously. Her watery eyes circled around Dustless's eyes. It was the first time she had seen such a strange pair of eyes. Even though she had read a lot of books, she had never heard of a devil fruit with such an ability. Indeed, I intend to store the ability of Mangekyo, as well as my own chakra, into your body in case I need it in the future. After all, you are the only one who can help me unravel the secret. Regardless of the little girl's resistance, his cold arm drooped on her soft little hand, and the evil but unusually strong warm energy fluctuations poured into her body. After a while, Dustless's eyes returned to their original black color, and when the weak little girl opened her eyes again, they were scarlet Sharingan. Remember, don't try to use its power unless you have no other choice. The side effects of the kaleidoscope are great. Falling unconscious is the best-case scenario, and in a serious case, it can even directly extract your vitality. Dustless said with a serious look, and his meticulous look showed that he was not joking. Forcibly using the kaleidoscope without the bloodline of the Uchiha clan will only increase the burden, especially in this young body, which may be directly swallowed up. The chakra that Dustless stored in her body was not enough to open such a powerful technique as Kinsusanu. What a strong ability! Perceiving the extraordinariness of the eyes, the little girl exclaimed, and the dark space was as clear as day. The ability of the kaleidoscope is beyond imagination. What you see is just the tip of the iceberg. Dustless explained with a slight smile, and his mind fell into memories. When he first opened the kaleidoscope, his left eye gave birth to a technique called Divine Providence, which can give any ability of his own to others, provided that the target must be a living body. When he invaded the moon, it was because of the power of the 8-tailed glint fruit that he was able to sweep across the moon. Otherwise, many years ago, Wu Chen would have died and become a skeleton on the moon, forever remaining in the universe. This technique also has limitations, and when he gives the Mangekyo Sharingan to others, Dustless himself can no longer use the ability of the Sharingan. The chakra stored in your body is limited, and if you can avoid using the kaleidoscope, try not to use it. The little girl carefully sensed that there was an inexplicable fluctuation of energy in her body, and because her body is not strong enough, the amount of energy stored is limited. In short, the reason why Dustless temporarily transferred the ability of the Mangekyo Sharingan to her is that he wants her to save her life, and using the ability of the Mangekyo Sharingan to fight is far from reaching this level. Can the conditions you promised me really be fulfilled? Thinking of the conditions of helping Dustless, the little girl asked in a trembling voice. She also has conditions for working for Dustless. Of course, I am not shameless enough to deceive a teenage girl. Dustless replied confidently, with a calm appearance. He didn't put the conditions of the little girl in his eyes at all, and the confidence exuding from his gestures makes people involuntarily trust him. I can reverse the flow of time and bring people back to life. I am also a god and a devil. The conditions you put forward are just a trivial matter for me. The people who have passed away in the past will stand in front of you again. Dustless, who has thousands of abilities condensed in his body, for him, there is nothing he can't do, it's only whether he wants to or not. Chapter 476. Dustless, who has Rinnegan Sharingan, comes back from the dead is just a trivial matter for him. It is extremely simple, and it only consumes a little bit of spiritual power, which does not bother him. Perceiving the evil power in her pupils, the little girl nodded silently. She was sure that if it weren't for the suppression of the strange energy fluctuations in her body, she would have been eroded by this strong negative emotion in an instant. In the end, she would become a simple walking dead. This is Mary Ahua. You are still wanted by the government. I will secretly send someone to send you away. Restoring the previous indifference, Dustless said without any ripples. In his eyes, a chess piece is always a chess piece, and the hidden chess piece in front of him is just the kind that can't be lost. It is worth lending his power to her to save her life. Do I really just need to follow your plan? The little girl who was about to leave suddenly stopped and asked with some uncertainty. Thinking of Dustless's absurd plan, she couldn't help but feel strange. Now Dustless has planned all her life for the next 20 years. How can she not be surprised? Indeed, you only need to follow what I remind you to do, and everything else is fine. Dustless also handed her a Den Den Mushi in case of an emergency. The plan can't keep up with the changes. What will happen in the future? Will there be unexpected situations? All of this must be prepared in advance. One wave after another, and you dare to do it so absurdly, bastard. In the office of the Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral, a roar with monstrous anger resounded throughout the Marlins. Fleet Admiral Kong stared at the map angrily, and a piercing killing intent broke out. The location marked on the map was Impel Down. Just through the Den Den Mushi, the bad news of Impel Down being invaded alarmed the entire Marine Headquarters. There is no need to be angry. Sengoku has already taken a battleship, and I believe that soon, he will chase down the villains who invaded Impel Down. Senior Staff Officer Tsuru, on the other hand, was unusually calm. After so many years of ups and downs, she had already developed a calm mentality that would not change even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of her. Well, this old man is worried about Sengoku. Soon, this hot potato will be replaced by him. I can also eat shellfish calmly like Garp in the future. Marshal Kong looked at Lieutenant General Crane in annoyance. At the same time, he glanced at Garp, who was crazily eating the shellfish. He couldn't help but give him a thumbs up and secretly praised him for his wit. It was precisely because he had repeatedly refused to be promoted to Great General that he could leisurely slack off. Sengoku is an admiral of the Marine Headquarters and is destined to work hard. Nonsense. I'm worried that the prisoners in Impel Down will be released by those vicious invaders. With a gloomy expression, Vice Admiral Tsuru expressed the worry in her heart. Cold sweat dripped down from her old temples. The lowest level of Impel Down was where some legendary big pirates were locked. If it was released, the world would be thrown into chaos. At this moment, Impel Down had turned into a pile of rubble, and the fierce fighting had caused the surrounding ground to crack, irregular, and even showing signs of sinking. I really don't know what's so special about this guy. Master and Hawkeye actually value him so much. This idiot is simply his truest reflection. In the dock promenade, the Don Quixote pirates slowly moved forward, and the future leader of the Spade Army, Pika, carried a big black sack on his shoulder. The thing in the big sack was obviously vitality, and sometimes it struggled violently. Fuck. I'm the world's #1 scientist. You bastards put the world's #1 scientist in a sack. This is blasphemy. An angry voice came out of the sack, and the shrill scream made people's scalp numb. If you have the guts to untie the sea stone handcuffs on my body, I will let you know the true meaning of devil fruit combined with science. You better be a useful person. You spent so much effort. If you get a trash, I will let you have a taste of the bomb fruit's power. Looking around, the members of the Don Quixote pirates had scars of different sizes on their bodies, all caused by rescuing the so-called world's #1 scientist. Treble, you're too slow. A middle-aged man with pink feathers came out of the darkness, his face full of arrogance and gloominess. Looking closely, it was Doflamingo. Another person hiding in the darkness with a black sword on his back is naturally Hawkeye. It's all this brat's fault for being disobedient. We spent so much effort to find him, and now he wants to kill us. After that, Pika slammed the sack on the wall and then stepped on it a few times before he was satisfied. Caesar also took the opportunity to get out of the sack. He grinned and was about to curse, but after seeing Doflamingo and Hawkeye, these two terrifying people, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. His old face flushed red. The two big pirates in front of him are so powerful that he can't afford to offend them. Is this guy Caesar? Looking at the comedic Caesar, the corner of Doflamingo's eyes twitched. He originally thought Caesar was a gentle and cultured scientist, but reality was the opposite of what he thought. His face was pale, he was dressed in a prisoner's uniform, and there were strange horns on his head. Because of Pika's previous revenge, this kid's face was swollen like a clown, which was very funny. It's time to go, it won't be long before the enemy invades. Waving his hand, the crowd simply left, and Hawkeye followed closely behind. Impel Down, which was a big fight before, was as quiet as a dead city. The ground was flowing with a mysterious purple venom that could corrode any substance that touched it. In the center of the venom, Magellan's bloody body was clearly visible, with knife wounds and dense holes in his chest. With only a weak breath left, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Hawkeye and Doflamingo teamed up and Magellan was certainly not their opponent. Chapter 477. As soon as Doflamingo and Hawkeye walked out of Impel Down, a harsh roar came from afar. Looking up, it was countless black cannonballs. As far as the eye could see, it was a group of marine battleships, and the admirals of Sengoku on the turret. If we don't want to be recognized by him, we can only escape in chaos. Doflamingo's eyes flashed with determination as he said in a deep voice. The implication is to release all the prisoners in Impel Down. Only in this way can they escape without being exposed. As for the prisoners in the end, they don't care about them. Hawkeye was silent, apparently agreeing with Doflamingo's approach, and only in this way can they escape. The Warring States of Buddha was a marine admiral in Roger's era, and his strength is unfathomable. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, 2 days passed quietly. On an island somewhere in the Grand Line, a thin figure stood in a ruined building, looking at the distant sea, and there were many chimpanzees around him grinning at the figure. How strange. To think that a bunch of beasts would dare to provoke me. Looking down at the big baboons below, Dustless's mouth flashed with a cold light, and his calm eyes flashed with a blazing fighting spirit. This island was destroyed by war a few years ago, and most of the people left the island to take refuge. Few people know about it, so Dustless also chose this place as a temporary stronghold. Soon, Hawkeye and Doflamingo will bring Caesar here. Mere beast, bring it on. The majestic fighting spirit spread out. Dustless knew that these big baboons have been learning human fighting skills for a long time, and their rich fighting experience is even more than that of humans. Oh! A group of big baboons apparently understood Dustless's provocation, and they immediately roared angrily and surrounded him in groups. Looking at the scale, there are no less than hundreds of them. And they seem to be here? Looking sideways, the sea in the distance suddenly had many small black spots. His pupils dilated, and the flag of the Don Quixote pirates entered Dustless's sight, including a man jumping up and down, wearing spiral stripes. Is he Caesar? Sure enough, it's exactly as I guessed. Dustless was unusually calm. In the original work, Caesar was an unusually lively and active person. At the same time, a group of baboons holding all kinds of swords and spears also charged over. They were just inches away, and their sharp swords were about to cut Dustless's body into pieces. Originally, I wanted to use this to kill time. Looks like I have to stop here. He withdrew his gaze again, and a ripple appeared in his pitch-black pupils. Suddenly, a powerful airwave swept out of the calm sky, and an invisible energy wave swept out like a wave. The formless air wave turned into a physical attack, crushing the ground under Dustless's feet into powder. The eyes of the baboons that had leaped into the air immediately turned pale white. Their mouths full of sharp teeth spat out dark red blood as they fell to the ground. Extremely fragile. Expressionlessly looking at those big baboons who had fainted, Dustless's entire body glowed with golden light. Along with a piercing sound, he disappeared like a breeze. Just in the blink of an eye, Dustless fell on the ship of the Don Quixote pirates. Who is it? The ghostly appearance of Dustless stunned everyone. Seeing the mysterious enemy invading, the members of the Don Quixote pirates were about to join forces to capture Dustless, but Doflamingo waved his hand to stop them. Don't act rashly, this is one of us. Releasing a cold murderous aura, Doflamingo said tiredly. Dustless frowned slightly, and his eyes quietly spread out, taking in the changes in everyone's expression. Whether it was Hawkeye or Doflamingo, they all showed a deep loss of fatigue. It's just a kidnapping, why are you guys like this? With a little curiosity, Dustless asked, whether it was Hawkeye or Doflamingo, as well as the crew, they had obviously experienced a great battle and were extremely tired. Bastards, those damned bastards are biting the hand that feeds them. How dare they try to snatch the ship after we let them out? Outrageous! Caesar gnashed his teeth, and the murderous intent in his words could not wait to tear the prisoners of Impel down into pieces. After about 15 minutes, after Hawkeye narrated the original story in detail, Wuxia understood the cause of the whole thing as if waking up from a dream. Pirates are always greedy and cruel. Doflamingo, who wanted to take advantage of the chaos, released all the prisoners in Impel Down. It happened that Marine Admiral Sengoku arrived in time and bombarded the entire Impel Down. The surrounding battleships were smashed, and a group of pirates fled to Doflamingo's pirate ship, and there was inevitable physical contact. Those guys are really unscrupulous. Looking around at the broken pirate ship, Doflamingo said with murderous intent. Dustless glanced at him without a trace. Pirates were indeed cruel and unscrupulous, backstabbing people. As a pirate, Doflamingo was no exception. Gotcha! The whole ship burst and became shaky, and it was about to sink to the bottom of the sea. Most of the members of the Don Quixote pirates were ability users, and they looked at them with horror. Devil fruit ability users will die if they fall to the bottom of the sea. Am I, the world's top scientist, going to die in this unknown place? Caesar roared in a low voice, his face full of unwillingness. Just as everyone's heart was filled with despair, a majestic gravitational force suddenly descended. The slowly sinking ship strangely floated up and quickly flew towards the island. The initiator was Dustless, whose right eye turned into Tensigan. The gravity of Tensigan even reached the level of controlling the moon. Now this small ship is naturally not worth mentioning to Dustless. Recalling the conversation between Hawkeye and Doflamingo with Dustless before, everyone realized that the young man in front of them was the big boss behind the scenes. Chapter 478. The broken battleship slowly landed, and everyone's tense heart relaxed. The sea rejected the devil fruit ability and sank to the bottom of the sea. His line of sight spread out and almost the entire island's appearance was in his eyes. A destroyed mess of a country. The buildings were all destroyed, and there was no one around. It was a bit embarrassing to want to use this as a stronghold. The isolated island was silent, and even a place to sleep and live had to be built. His eyes narrowed slightly, his hands formed a seal, and the ground that was stable before suddenly trembled. As Dustless fell, the surrounding landscape suddenly changed dramatically. Mokuton. Tree world descends. Green trees containing majestic vitality rose from the ground, and in a short time, they densely covered the entire earth, and the twisting green trees were like tens of thousands of pythons. Not only that, the forest also followed Dustless's will to change, and a giant building was built in an instant, majestic and spectacular like a work of God. The time wasted from beginning to end was no more than a few breaths. Even Doflamingo and Hawkeye, who had witnessed countless stormy waves, were stunned when they saw such a scene, and their pupils were slightly sluggish. Every time he makes a move, it's a shocking ability. Then his body suddenly ignored the existence of gravity and floated in front of Caesar like a cloud. Under the latter's stunned gaze, Dustless handed him the design of Pluto. Caesar was stunned when he saw this. Dustless, who was suspended in the void, looked down at him with extremely uncomfortable eyes, which made Caesar particularly uncomfortable. After immediately remembering the strength of the former, he took the design and looked at it carefully. This is the design of the ancient weapon Pluto? After a while, Caesar's pupils dilated, and he exclaimed with an inconceivable astonishment, and his tone was unusually trembling. In less than a second, under everyone's speechless gazes, Caesar began to dance with his hands and feet, and began to talk crazily. I should be the world's #1 scientist to create an ultimate killing weapon like an ancient weapon, and Vegapunk, that eyesore, will also become a thing of the past. Doflamingo's mouth twitched when he saw this. His heart was in a haze. He suddenly felt that it was an insult to him to spend his painstaking plan on such a weirdo. With all the facilities in place, how long will it take? Dustless nodded and asked straightforwardly. Dustless had never doubted the authenticity of the design. Doflamingo was as cunning as a fox, so he should know the price of deceiving him. This is hard to say. Caesar's expression stiffened when he heard this. After carefully scanning the design drawing again, his brows wrinkled tightly. Sengoku is about to be promoted to Fleet Admiral, which means that there will be a gap in the ranks of Marine Admirals. Z has retired behind the scenes, and Garp has repeatedly refused to be promoted. The situation is worrying. Hearing this, Dustless shook his head decisively. He was not interested in mixing with a group of old men all day long. The leisurely days of Mariehua were more suitable for him. There is no problem in participating in the promotion ceremony of Sengoku. As for the transfer, I have already made an appointment with Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, so don't mention it again. Fleet Admiral Kong can also use this to prevent the birth of the 7 Warlords of the Sea. Dustless's transfer to a genuine Marine Admiral not only fills the lack of high-end combat power, but also suppresses pirates all over the world. In addition to the Shichibukai plan, it is killing 3 birds with 1 stone. On the contrary, if Dustless does not become a genuine admiral and still lives behind the scenes, the 7 Warlords of the Sea is bound to come out. Only by using this abnormal force to fill the shortage of admiral and to deter the pirates of the Grand Line and even the world full of pirates will continue to be balanced. Dustless, who eats both black and white, can't wait for the Shichibukai to appear quickly. He is destined not to agree with Fleet Admiral Kong's idea. All in all, the 7 Warlords of the Sea, an evil force dressed in the cloak of justice, is an inevitable product of the chaotic times, and it can't be stopped, and under the power of the Marine can't change the reality at all. The will of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, is greater than everything. Although I sympathize with you, but, after all, our positions are different. Looking at the blue void in the distance, Dustless was filled with emotion. He understood the difficulties of the Marine, and if he was in their shoes, he couldn't agree with the Shichibukai plan. Former comrades have fallen under the swords and sticks of pirates, and now they have to abandon their old grievances and join forces with each other. The entire Marine can't accept such a ridiculous proposal. Can't accept it, but it doesn't mean that they can refuse. The Marine can't violate the meaning of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, from beginning to end, because they are only the surface face of the world government. Shaking his head, Dustless was just about to leave when he seemed to have thought of something. Waves of ripples suddenly swept out from the void behind him, and countless divine weapons flashed out from within. The azure blue void was instantly dyed golden. So many weapons. So many berries. Pirates are greedy, and the Don Quixote pirates were stunned. Their eyes were fixed on the various weapons floating in the sky, and they unconsciously swallowed their saliva. Even the top pirates like Doflamingo can't let go of the treasures in the sky. Strength is very important, and so is the glittering berries. If you want to develop, you can't leave this kind of thing stained with money. With a wave of his hand, the weapons floating in the sky fell to the ground and piled up into a mountain. If you don't have enough, you can buy it, you don't have to rob. Staring at Doflamingo, Dustless said faintly. Ever since he had the Gate of Babylon, this heaven-defying ability, money had changed from the original material to a concept. It takes an astronomical amount of money to buy all kinds of machinery and materials to build Pluton. According to Caesar's preliminary estimate, it will cost at least 10 billion berries. And this is only the initial investment. The Don Quixote pirates certainly can't afford it. It's a pity to exchange this kind of weapon for scrap metal. Hawkeye's calm pupils loosened. He thought his black knife was a peerless divine weapon. Among the divine weapons that Wu Chen casually took out, many of them were at the same level as the Black Knife Knight. And the most speechless thing is that these weapons comparable to the Black Blade Knight will soon be exchanged for money. If you like it, you can help yourself. Looking at the restrained members of the Don Quixote pirates, Dustless lazily said, and then his body disappeared into the clouds. Chapter 480. The Marine headquarters was no different from the past, but it was more solemn. The promotion of the fleet admiral during the Sengoku period was not as prosperous as imagined. The outside world didn't even know the most basic news. It was extremely low-key, and only the soldiers of the Marine headquarters knew the inside story. The soldiers on guard stared with their eyes wide open. Today was the day when the fleet admiral was replaced. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! The sharp sound of breaking the air suddenly resounded through the sky. The harsh sharp sound made the soldiers' ears stuffy. They subconsciously looked up and saw a straight beam of light coming from the distant sky. A strong wind blew head-on, and in just a short time, a young man in a white coat appeared out of thin air. Taking a closer look, it was Wu Chen who rushed over in a hurry. "Who is it?" A group of Marines glared and pointed their guns at the mysterious intruder. They stared at Dustless fiercely. On such an important day, someone dared to invade the Marine headquarters. They were about to pull the trigger in their hands when a tall figure stopped their actions. "Vice Admiral Sakazuki, this guy is an intruder." A group of Marines looked at the sudden appearance of Vice Admiral Sakazuki, and the battle instantly value report. The news that the future Sakazuki Akainu will be promoted to an admiral of the Marine headquarters has spread. There are even rumors that Sakazuki Akainu already has the strength to be on par with an admiral, but his age and qualifications have not reached the level of an admiral. "Put down the gun or you will die." Looking at Dustless, Sakazuki said indifferently. The rolling hoarse voice did not have human emotions. It was no different from steel. The Marines who raised their guns looked at each other and put down their guns. "Please." Turning sideways, Sakazuki made an inviting gesture to Dustless. Hearing this, Dustless nodded silently and walked away under the stunned gaze of the Marines. The dark-skinned Akainu with a hat followed closely behind. Only a group of petrified Marines were left, staring at each other. In the heavily guarded corridor, Marines could be seen standing guard only a few meters apart. They looked meticulous, and at first glance, they were the elites of the elites. Sakazuki, Akainu, raised its eyes and looked at Dustless, who was alone in front of it. The surprise and confusion in its eyes were clearly visible. The highest level meeting of the Navy. Even if he is a celestial dragon, it has nothing to do with him. After thinking about it, Sakazuki didn't guess the purpose of Dustless. Usually, when the Tenryubito is beaten, the Marine Admiral will come out. Dustless was not beaten, but he came to the Marine headquarters without being beaten. He was really puzzled. In particular, the current meeting was extraordinary. Even the Vice Admirals of the Marine may not be eligible to participate. If it wasn't for Fleet Admiral Sengoku to make an exception and allow him, Kuzan, and Borsellino to participate, I'm afraid they would be rejected. Dustless was an outsider, but he was an honored guest. No one could feel at ease. "What's so strange about you, Sakazuki?" Suddenly pausing, Dustless turned to look at Sakasuji, who was completely wrapped up, and asked with a smile. "To be honest, I'm not interested in such a small meeting either. But since your marshal is begging me so humbly, I have no choice but to give him face. He's the general of the army after all. He may be a little cunning and shameless, but I still have to give him face." After that, Dustless pretended to shrug helplessly, as if he was very reluctant and forced. Sakazuki. The corner of his mouth twitched. Even if Sakazuki had a stone-like mentality, he was still annoyed by Dustless's words, but in the end, his burning red iron fist relaxed. The identity of the two, whether its strength, is the difference between heaven and earth, there is a dimensional gap. Inside the Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral Office. Fleet Admiral Kong was leisurely sitting on the sofa, leisurely smoking, and even humming a rare song in his mouth. This comfortable appearance was like walking in the clouds. His whole body was light and very comfortable. On the other hand, Sengoku's face was gloomy. He was wearing the original Fleet Admiral Kong's uniform. Obviously, Sengoku has been promoted to Fleet Admiral, and the original Fleet Admiral Kong also went one step further and became the world government's Fleet Admiral. His status was second only to Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. You don't have to be angry, Sengoku. The Marine is actually in such a situation. In the name of absolute justice, to maintain the peace of the world seas, they are essentially the world government's dogs. Their orders can only be obeyed. Seeing Fleet Admiral Sengoku's pale face, the Chief Staff Officer Tsuru smiled bitterly and comforted him. Although it's unpleasant to hear, it's true. The Marine is just the government's surface face. As long as they can maintain the stability of the world, it doesn't matter if they lose this surface face. Creak. At this moment, the door of the conference room was gently pushed open, and Dustless and Sakazuki were exposed to everyone's sight. Staring at Sengoku, who was already wearing the Fleet Admiral uniform, Dustless's face showed an apologetic smile and whispered, "I'm sorry, there were some unexpected accidents on the road, delayed the journey, and I'm late." After that, Dustless put on an "I've tried my best" expression, causing everyone to roll their eyes. Even an idiot could see that he was deliberately stalling for time, waiting for Sengoku to become the Fleet Admiral before he arrived. Sengoku was too lazy to talk nonsense. To be honest, he felt strange that Dustless could arrive in person. Then he nodded towards Dustless and pointed to the remaining position on the sofa, motioning Dustless to sit there. Seeing everyone seated, Sengoku ordered his assistant to hand each of the documents on the table, and then drank the boiling tea in the cup, as if this was the only way to suppress the anger in his heart. No wonder Sengoku is so secretive. After carefully browsing the contents of the document, Dustless knew why Sengoku's face was so ugly. These people's courage is really extraordinary, and their practice is really provocative, which is tantamount to slapping the face of the new Fleet Admiral. Chapter 481. And they racked their brains to think of the most insulting way to Marine and replied to a letter to Fleet Admiral Sengoku. How can he not be angry? In this era, the Marine is synonymous with the cunning of a mouse. They were willing to wash their hands of the gold basin, but in the end, they were wiped out by the Marine's rogue. The number of pirates is uncountable. It's no wonder that Sengoku chose to make a big move, and he was beaten in the face. Even if he has been practicing for many years in the sea, there is still a burning pain. Spinning a cocoon. Dustless sat silently on the sofa, silent and speechless, putting on a look of indifference. He is just a so-called honorary admiral. He has no right to interfere. Of course, he is too lazy to ask more. The reason why he came to brush his sense of existence is to sell Sengoku and Fleet Admiral Sky's face. A group of villains who commit all kinds of crimes are so arrogant, hateful. Sengoku was so angry that he felt an unprecedented sense of grievance. He had already lowered his posture and hoped that some influential pirates would join the 7 warlords of the sea, but he didn't expect that the invited pirates would still be so arrogant. Not only did they kill the messenger he sent, but they also wrote a bunch of messy things that belittled and disgusted him as a Marine Fleet Admiral. Since that group of villains don't know what's good for them, there is no need to establish the so-called Shichibukai, this ridiculous force. It is better to send troops directly to annihilate them. Fleet Admiral Sengoku sneered again and again. Marine has lowered their body and face. Since they are not willing to join, Sengoku can only follow the general trend and send troops to crusade against those arrogant pirates. That's impossible, Sengoku. The 5 won't allow you to act recklessly according to your own will. The Shichibukai's matter is their acquiescence. General Kong's tone was sad, and he felt the same way. It's good to have a meteoric rise, but he is not a person who forgets his roots. The Marine created him, and Sky also created the Marine. He has a kind of love for the Marine from his soul. His most beloved soul was about to be stained, and his heart ached. A superior official can crush someone to death. Hearing Commander Kong's words, Sengoku raised his head and sighed. The loneliness in his tone made all the generals present silent. The only one who could remain indifferent was Dustless. He is not a real Marine, and he is not destined to integrate into this circle. The relationship between the world government and the Marine is not as harmonious and close as the world thinks. In fact, they are not as close as they seem to be, and they are always scheming against each other. Thinking about it, Dustless can't help but smile. I'm afraid that Sengoku and the entire Marine didn't expect that in the face of the temptation of the 7 warlords of the sea, the pirates still firmly refused, which was completely unexpected. To be qualified to plunder and avoid the pursuit of the Marine, such generous conditions are hard to come by. Sengoku and the Marine headquarters senior officials don't understand, but Dustless, as a bystander, knows the reason. In fact, it's very simple. The biggest problem is that the Marine can't be trusted at all. There are countless backstabbing incidents. Not to mention, pirates and the Marine are two opposite enemies after all. Only ghosts believe in the grand undertaking of abandoning the past. Idiots will also think of this as a trap for the Marine. The end of the road is not terrible, but if they are stabbed to death by their teammates, I'm afraid no one can get over it. And the Marine is the one who often does this kind of thing. There are countless pirates who believe that the Marine will eventually end up dead. There are many famous sayings in the Marine. Even if a pirate intends to repent, his sins can't be washed away by a moment of awakening. Therefore, when a pirate bows to the Marine, there are only 2 ways to go. The first is definitely to go to heaven and forever fall into the arms of God. The second is to be imprisoned in the deep-sea prison. Impel down, that kind of dark hell on earth where you will never bathe in the sun and absorb the fresh air. In fact, as long as someone is willing to help, the establishment of the Shichibukai is just a small matter. Just when everyone had a headache and was thinking hard, Admiral Kong suddenly smiled mysteriously. Hearing this, all the Marines were stunned and looked at him with slight expectation. So was Dustless. Admiral Kong came into view with his hands in front of him, and the corners of his mouth were raised high. His slightly proud rough face combined with his old eyes looked very cunning. In the face of everyone's gaze, Admiral Kong was calm, but his eyes were faintly looking at Dustless. Why doesn't this old guy's temper change? This is not the way to pit people. Seeing this, Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He knew that this strong little old man asked him to come to the ceremony of Sengoku. It was not a good thing, so he deliberately delayed the time, but he didn't expect to be caught by this very deep old man. Dustless didn't have any other complicated purpose. He just wanted to watch the meeting silently as an observer. Who knows that in the end, he was pulled into the water by this old man. Looking at Admiral Kong who pretended to be stupid, Dustless faintly guessed his purpose. If it was him, he could indeed promote the Shichibukai plan to be temporarily established. The Marines present were the elites of the elites. They were both intelligent and brave. Even Garp, who had the most nerves, was actually a meticulous man. In an instant, he understood what Admiral Kong meant. What you said is true. Admiral Kong's words made Sengoku suddenly enlightened, and he secretly scolded him for his ignorance. Before he fell into a blind spot of thought, in fact, he could find another shortcut. Pirates can choose not to join the 7 warlords of the sea, but their own people can temporarily fill in. Jurokill Maihawk, the man with the nickname Hawkeye, can be temporarily stuffed into this organization. Anyway, he is also a pirate, and he can make an example to the pirates of the world. Chapter 482. Dustless already knew that he couldn't stay out of it and he could no longer keep a low profile. Moreover, he is a Tenryuzu, and several people present know that. The 3 future generals have seen Dustless, and they must know his identity as a Tenryuzu. Marine hero Garp, Sengoku and Air Commander, including Vice Admiral Tsuru, all know Dustless. Deliberate disguise will only increase the ridicule. Although Hawkeye will not question my orders, this involves his personal affairs. I can only say that I will try my best. His own choice has nothing to do with me. The void splashed with ripples, and Dustless's voice came out, giving an ambiguous answer. Hawkeye doesn't join the 7 warlords of the sea. It doesn't matter to Wu Chen, it's just up to him. Hearing this, Sengoku's lonely heart was barely at ease. As long as Wu Chen opened his mouth to help, it would be fine. He had just been appointed as the marshal, and there were twists and turns. Even if his nerves were made of iron, he could not bear it. The big pirates who received the invitation to become Shichibukai before, including Chinjo and other influential figures, adopted the same means. After slaughtering the Marines sent in the past, they racked their brains to ridicule him as the new fleet admiral. That Chinjo is really vengeful. I just dented his head and he still hates me. Garp's nerve was quite big, full of innocence. He just performed his duty as a righteous soldier, but he didn't expect to be hated by Chinjo. However, this innocent remark was met with a roar of anger from Sengoku. Garp, you bastard, if you were willing to be an admiral, none of this would have happened. Staring at the legendary hero, Sengoku's last roar turned into a long sigh and a wry smile. From the moment he joined the Marine, he and Garp were close teammates. While appreciating each other, they were also competitors. It wasn't until Garp refused to be promoted to admiral that all this stopped. Otherwise, it might not be him who became the fleet admiral. From the looks of it, Garp was the final victor. He was living his life happily. With the end of Garp's speech, the serious atmosphere in the office also relaxed. This was also what Sengoku was happy to see. Garp could play such a mysterious role every time, which could relieve the depression during the meeting. As for Dustless, everyone ignored him for a while. Green Pepper. I didn't expect him to be one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Dustless thought to himself with some surprise in his dark pupils. Cone Green Pepper was also one of the legendary great pirates. His strength was unfathomable, and his reputation was well known. His iron head technique had reached the acme of perfection. As the saying goes, people are afraid of fame and pigs are afraid of being fat. In the end, because of his fame, he finally met his strongest enemy, the hero of the Navy, Vice Admiral Garp. After a fierce battle between the two, his sharp head was caved in by Garp's iron fist. After that, Cone Green Pepper, who was lucky enough to escape, gradually went into seclusion and faded out of sight. Even so, his hatred for Garp was increasing day by day. He hated Garp day and night. How could Cone Green Pepper join the Marine, let alone become the so-called 7 warlords of the sea? Naturally, he refused the invitation of the Marine. There's this old guy. A huge monster came into Dustless's sight. He had a fiery hairstyle and looked like a devil. There were 2 horns on the forehead, sharp ears and teeth, and there were crisscrossed stitches from head to neck. His whole body was dressed in a bat suit, which looked nondescript. It was Gecko Moria. However, this old guy also refused the conditions of Sengoku. He was not interested in joining the so-called 7 warlords of the sea. He even cut off the shadow of the Marine personnel sent by Sengoku. Thinking about it, Moria's new world was doing well. He had not yet fought with 100 Beast Kaido, and his strength was at its peak. There were countless members under the ship, and there was no need to get involved in the Shichibukai. What's more, pirates don't have a good impression of the Marine. It's the same reason that the Marine hates pirates. After careful confirmation, Dustless never found the name of Doflamingo. With his strength, it's not difficult for him to be qualified for the 7 warlords of the sea. Obviously, it's someone with a higher status than Sengoku. Naturally, it's the 5 people of the world government who can have such a method. As for Boa Hancock, who was originally invited, her name did not appear on the list. First, her current identity is Dustless's slave. Second, she did not do anything bad and is not a wanted criminal. However, the pirates who were invited this time refused the conditions of Sengoku. It seems that the corner of his mouth squirmed slightly. When Dustless was about to help Sengoku, a strange energy fluctuation suddenly came from his body, and the words on his mouth suddenly stopped. Through the special charm left on Princess Otoheim, he learned that one of the 3 ancient weapons in the future, Poseidon, has been born from Princess Otoheim's belly, and it's named Shirahoshi. With the birth of Shirahoshi, Dustless was barely relieved, and the corner of his mouth outlined a smile. He did not intend to stop the mother and son from living a quiet life. No one knows the conditions of Poseidon's awakening. That is, after a few years, waiting for Monchi D. Luffy to help Shirahoshi awaken Poseidon, Dustless will take one of the most powerful weapons in the world. The plan to build the super battleship, Pluto, is also being urgently started. At that time, Dustless will have 2 peerless weapons in his hands. As for where the legendary Heavenly King is hiding, there is no way to know, but according to Dustless's guess, Heavenly King should belong to a behemoth of an aircraft. Its own area is even more exaggerated than Pluto. Chapter 483. Dustless's thoughts turned back, and he suddenly thought of the extraordinarily beautiful and graceful woman. Princess Otoheim always had a sad look, which was reflected in the dark pupils of Dustless's pupils. If he remembered correctly, not long after, this kind, beautiful, and sentimental princess consort would pass away. Even if she dies, I will squeeze out her last value. With a cold smile on his face, Dustless secretly decided. He made up his mind that on the day of Princess Otoheim's death, he will rescue her from the cage without leaving a trace, so that Shirahoshi can be used again at a certain time when she awakens Sea King's ability in the future. Shirahoshi's birth has nothing to do with Dustless. Only through the card of Princess Otoheim, she will be dependent on him, so that he can better control this destructive Sea King in the future. Sea King's ability is very exaggerated. He can summon Sea Kings with a volume of more than 5,000 meters. In this world where the Sea Kings are rampant, there is no doubt that they are the absolute overlord. Even if it's a 5,000-meter insect, it will cause a landslide, not to mention the powerful Sea King. While Dustless was daydreaming, this boring meeting also came to an end. The content was quite simple. Since some big pirates are afraid of the government, they can only hire someone else. This is also the result of a helpless situation. The admirals of the marine headquarters are already extinct. Sakazuki Akainu, Kozo Akiji, and Borsellino Kizaru will soon become the new 3 admirals. The only flaw is that the current 3 admirals are not qualified enough. It will be difficult for them to be promoted to admiral. Some people with ulterior motives will inevitably fan the flames. The crowd left the conference room one after another, and in the blink of an eye, there were only a few people left. Dustless was about to leave quietly, but an unexpected figure suddenly pulled his thin arm. Looking back, it was Fleet Admiral Sengoku. "There's something I have to tell you clearly," Sengoku said with a serious look. Hearing this, Dustless nodded slightly. Just listening to Sengoku's heavy voice, he knew that it was not a trivial matter. Since Kaido escaped from the hands of the Marine again, he began to rapidly expand his base in the New World and attacked the Marine base unscrupulously, deliberately retaliating against the Marine. Sengoku said with a little tiredness. Now it's an eventful time. Bad news comes to his ears every day. General Kong also nodded cautiously. The reason why the warring states were reluctant to establish the 7 warlords of the sea, and now hope to establish it as soon as possible, was the biggest factor. Kaido, that tough guy, is now listed as the most powerful big pirates by the world. Together with Whitebeard AI from the New World, Big Mom, and Red Hair, that kid who came later, they are all given a collective title. Commander Kong's murderous intent was awe-inspiring as he became a great pirate. This was an indirect slap to the Marine's old face. However, the most intolerable thing was that arrogant title. "Is it the Yonko, 4 Emperors?" Dustless asked tentatively, thinking of the famous emperor in the future. The Yonko, 4 Emperors, are the super overlords of the second half of the Grand Line. The strength of each emperor is at the peak of perfection, and there are almost no pirates who can compete with them. Yes, a group of short-sighted pirates dare to crown themselves with such an arrogant title. Do they even put the Marine in their eyes? Commander Kong's eyes widened and he slammed the table. The meaning of the Yonko, 4 Emperors, is self-evident. It is like an emperor overlooking the vast and endless sea. Where will the Marine's face go? Sengoku's old face is like a black pot, which is the fundamental reason why he changed his mind and hoped to establish the Shichibukai as soon as possible. Although he is very dissatisfied with these big pirates and even disgusted with them, it's still good to be able to use the barbarian strategy to suppress the so-called Yonko, 4 Emperors. Otherwise, the advantage that the Marine has gained since the execution of Roger will be dissipated by the 4 local emperors who have just ascended the throne, and they will fall into a disadvantage again. Dustless couldn't help but smile and despise Fleet Admiral Kong's words. If pirates really want to put the Marine in their eyes, there will be no pirates in the world. Good Yonko, 4 Emperors. I'm afraid that the higher you stand, the worse you fall. Sengoku sneered. The corner of his eyes glanced at Sengoku without a trace. Dustless keenly smelled a touch of hostility from Sengoku's tone, and his heart sank. There is a saying that after the establishment of the Shichibukai, Sengoku will choose to kill one of the Yonko, 4 Emperors. And even if it's not good, he will mix up the other party's teeth. So, what do you want me to do? It shouldn't be as simple as persuading Hawkeye to join the Shichibukai. Stretching his waist, Dustless asked with a yawn, deliberately making an impatient look, indicating that if the two have any questions, it's okay. Sengoku and Fleet Admiral Kong looked at each other, both had a difficult look, and then nodded silently. With a look, Sengoku walked to Dustless's ear, and immediately lowered his head and gossiped in Dustless's ear. His voice was as thin as a mosquito. Sengoku didn't say anything, but halfway through, Dustless's mouth twitched uncontrollably, and his face turned green. Are you kidding me? You want me to be a lab rat for the crazy scientist Vegapunk? You should go to Sabo Salino Kizaru. For this kind of thing, I think he will be willing to sacrifice himself for the marine. His spittle flew all over the sky and sprayed all over Sengoku's face. After Dustless kicked the door of the conference room into pieces, he rushed out of the door with a black line hanging on his head. Only Sengoku and Fleet Admiral Kong were left with a bitter smile on their faces. It is indeed impossible for Dustless, a dignified Tenryubito, to be a lab rat for Vegapunk. However, as Dustless said before he left, he can only take a step back. There is always Borsalino. Chapter 484. The warm sunlight enveloped the entire Mariehua, dispelling the darkness of the world. Even the most decadent celestial dragons stopped their daily torture of slaves at this moment and basked in the sun leisurely like Dustless. On the couch, Dustless closed his eyes lightly. His breathing was steady and light, and he fell into a trance. The world in the system always maintains a dreamlike void, and endless stars adorn the boundless sky. Whether it is day or night, they are as bright as stars and never extinguished. On the sparkling lake, two figures were suddenly reflected. One of them was Dustless, and the silver-haired woman chasing after him was naturally Kagaya Otsutsuki. Boy, you'd better let me out. The two figures were both suspended in the void, and the law of gravity didn't work on them at all. Kagaya's beautiful face was full of anger, and she had the urge to vomit blood. In this mysterious world, it was like a unique small domain, and she couldn't break out at all. She was locked in this narrow world like a prisoner. Sorry, I don't have this ability at the moment. Dustless shrugged his shoulders as much as he could, and he looked like he had tried his best. Suddenly visiting the system world, Dustless and Yulua were intimate, and by the way, he asked Ling if there was any way to get them out of this cage-like world. However, Kagaya came directly to his door. Staring at Kagaya's livid face, Dustless did not hesitate to add fuel to the fire and said, "Going out is also a disaster to the world. Your state of madness is only related to being a canary in a cage." These words made Kagaya's face turn straight, and her killing intent was monstrous. "Actually, if you can obediently obey my orders, I can let you out in the future." Dustless smiled seriously as he circled around Kagaya's delicate body. Her eyebrows wrinkled slightly, and she racked her brains but still couldn't get out of this closed world. Kagaya had to admit that if she wanted to break out of the prison and be reborn, she must use the power of Dustless. After thinking about it for a while, his voice became softer, less unattainable, and more approachable and gentle, which was rare. "What are your conditions?" Kagaya lowered her voice and asked. Clenching her fists tightly, chakra gathered in the center of her hands. Countless afterimages of her fists could be seen faintly in the sky, flickering and disappearing in the blink of an eye. It was obvious that she was threatening Dustless. It was a good idea, but Dustless was not a tactful person. Stroking his clean chin, Dustless said thoughtfully, "Although you and I are not husband and wife in name, we are already husband and wife in reality. As the saying goes, the husband sings and the wife follows. It's your duty to serve me. At the very least, you should serve me until I'm comfortable. In your dreams. You can only have my body, but not my heart." Gritting her teeth, Huey sneered. "Or are you saying that you're such a useless man that you can only use such despicable methods to threaten me?" Huey G's impression of Dustless could only be described with one word: terrible. Using despicable methods to seize her most important thing. Despicable to the extreme. What annoyed Huey G the most was that this brat was too shameless. All kinds of unbearable methods, Dustless was used to it. "Your heart?" Dustless showed a surprised expression for the first time, and then said jokingly, "Your heart? This kind of luxury is too small for me, so I don't need it. Compared to your body, I prefer the latter. So, I just want your body. As for your heart, It's dispensable. As soon as the words fell, what hit back at Dustless was a sky full of fist shadows. The sky was filled with countless fists that could blow up mountains. At this moment, Huiji was completely infuriated by Dustless. The goddess of a generation was ridiculed by a mortal again and again. Although this mortal could be on par with her, or even surpass her, Huiji's chest was filled with blazing flames. And it burst out uncontrollably. The fist shadows condensed in the void turned from nothingness to reality. The power was infinite, and it turned into an earth-shattering crush. Dustless, who was alone, was particularly weak and powerless. 80 Gods' air attack. Seeing this, Dustless shook his head with a wry smile. This scene again. Sure enough, it's just as I guessed. It's impossible for me to develop feelings over time. I'll talk about it in the future. This kind of violent and direct method is more suitable for me. The ability of the glistening fruit was activated, and a gorgeous luster appeared all over his body. Dustless was about to use elementalization to ignore this destructive fist. Suddenly, a light flashed in his mind, and the elementalization was stopped. This is a good opportunity to take the opportunity to see how powerful that is. With a smile on his face, Dustless looked forward to it. She thought that Dustless would activate his ability to be immune to the 80 Gods' air attack, but now it seemed that was not the case. Of course, she would not think that Dustless suddenly realized that he owed her too much and chose to die under her hands. Her small white hand gently tapped the void, and a strange weapon with an unknown depth appeared out of thin air and landed on Dustless's body. This mysterious unknown weapon froze the void. What an evil thing! Looking at the strange weapon in Dustless's hand cautiously, Huiji smelled danger. This is the ability I recently obtained. This thing is called the Parting Sword. Staring at the strongest sword in the gate of Babylon in his hand, and then calmly looking at the fist shadows whistling over, a cold light flashed in his eyes, and the parting sword in his hand also whistled down. Whoosh! A scarlet storm suddenly shot out, easily crushing the void. It was unstoppable like a tiger out of the cage. The moment it came into contact with the thousands of fists, the two disappeared between heaven and earth. It was just that the remaining power fluctuations were terrifying. The void was torn apart again when it was repaired. Such a cycle. The scene was very shocking. When you can really accept me, I will let you out. With that, Dustless's body disappeared from the system space forever, leaving only Huiji who was watching the void explode. Mariehua, Dustless, who was lying on the couch, opened his eyes. Behind him, a figure had been waiting for a long time. What is your choice, Hawkeye? Chapter 485. Hawkeye's sharp amber eyes stared at the void in front of him. Hawkeye's aura was calm, and he was always wearing the same black cloak. The black sword knight on his back was his everything. In the face of Wu Chen's inquiry, the young eagle's eyes flashed with shrewd determination. His whole person was like a peerless divine sword, and the sharp edge of the sword was unstoppable. Even the air that slipped away from his body was cut off by Hawkeye. That majestic sword essence made people have a whole new level of respect for him. I haven't seen you for a while, and your kendo attainments have improved again. You are really a shocking monster. 10 of me added together can't be compared to you. Wu Chen said unwillingly as he turned his head to look at Hawkeye, who had cut through the 9 heavens with his sword. Hawkeye was an amazing genius. He was almost invulnerable in all aspects. Swordsmanship, hockey, and even science, which he wasn't good at, he could come up with refreshing suggestions. No matter what, he was an expert in every aspect. He was an outstanding existence. Dustless also has a feeling of admitting defeat. Compared to his original brother Uchiha Itachi, he is also a perfect existence. His strength and wisdom are enviable. I hope you won't choose the same path as Itachi. Dustless closed his eyes again. Your kendo attainments are indeed not as good as mine. Hawkeye accepted Wu Chen's praise. At the same time, his calm eyes stared at Wu Chen. He lost his usual calmness and faintly had a blazing battle intent. He said, just as you said before, if we talk about overall strength, even 10 of me together are not your opponent. Hawkeye analyzed rationally. As a swordsman, he can indeed crush Dustless, but if we talk about comprehensive strength, Dustless can use overwhelming strength to defeat him. The dark blue giant, nearly 200 meters high, to this day, he still can't forget the power of destroying the world. Just a casual wind is enough to rewrite the map plate. Not only Hawkeye, but the world has never seen it. Therefore, Hawkeye is also willing to be loyal to Dustless and follow Dustless's footsteps step by step to the top of the world. What do you think, my hawk? Dustless asked lazily with his eyes still closed. He has already faintly guessed his choice. Apart from Dustless, whose strength is unfathomable, Hawkeye's biggest enemy is Red Hair Shanks, who already has the name of Yonko for emperors. He is one of the great pirates who overlooks all living beings in the second half of the Grand Line. Red Hair Shanks was famous all over the world. As his old enemy, Hawkeye wouldn't choose to hide and bury himself in the dust for the rest of his life. I didn't expect the world government to set up an organization like Shichibukai. However, it is barely an honor to be chosen. In this case, I will take one of the seats in this organization. Hearing this, Dustless opened his eyes, showing a sharp gaze, looking at Hawkeye, who is obviously taller than himself, and suddenly understood his purpose. So that's how it is. It seems that you are going to compete with Red Hair, and challenge Red Hair as one of the Yonko, four emperors. Hearing this, Dustless shook his head and said that he understood. Pirates are chasing fame and fortune. Although Hawkeye doesn't care about the pure material source of profit, he still has his own pursuit of fame. The position of the world's greatest swordsman must be real, not just strength, but the title is no exception. The title of Shichibukai is a disguised recognition. Red Hair Shanks, his former enemy and friend, has become a Yonko for emperors, above countless pirates. Hawkeye, who doesn't think he is worse than Red Hair, is not willing to fall behind. Otherwise, it would be an insult to himself. Yonko, four emperors, Red Hair's old enemy Hawkeye is immortal. This evaluation is an insult to Hawkeye. Swordsmen are high-handed and attach great importance to dignity, especially Hawkeye, who particularly attaches great importance to self-esteem, is even more intolerable. A monk like Dustless who is unmoved by the mortal world is unique. I will inform Sengoku that you are willing to become a Shichibukai. Slightly nodding, Dustless also respects Hawkeye's choice. His eyes suddenly became deep, penetrating the endless space. It seems that he has seen the scene on an island where Hawkeye and Red Hair's sword competition became a legend. Glancing at Hawkeye without a trace, Dustless whispered, I am afraid that Sengoku will be too excited to sleep. Hawkeye, a pirate who currently has the strength of an admiral, can become a Shichibukai and temporarily work for the marine. The impact and harvest are absolutely unparalleled. The power of an example is infinite. Speaking of which, Doflamingo's purpose doesn't seem simple. Suddenly he remembered that a few days ago, he accidentally used observation hockey and heard the conversation between Caesar and Doflamingo, and he chose to say it out loud. I knew that his purpose was not simple when he joined us. As long as it doesn't interfere with the construction of Pluton, let them come and go. Dustless doesn't care. According to his guess, it is likely to be something about the artificial devil fruit. As long as it doesn't interfere with the construction of Pluton, it doesn't matter. Dustless, Sama. In the dark room, White Zetsu drilled out of the ground with a piece of paper in his hand, with dense text and a portrait on it. Hawkeye was curious about White Zetsu's body structure at first. Finally, with the passage of time, he has become accustomed to it. It is normal for strange things to happen around Dustless. With a flick of his thumb, the information in White Zetsu's hand floated to Dustless. What came into view was an ugly man. His skin was rough, a few of his teeth were missing, and he had a big beer belly. Just from his appearance alone, one could tell that he was an idiot. This person is the man who will take everything from Whitebeard when he falls in the future. Blackbeard. He is actually a very deep and despicable villain. The world is changeable. Now your wisdom is so outstanding, but you even dare to reach out and touch this kind of thing. When the five know about it, whether Whitebeard can protect you will be a question mark. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.